Hey guys, a bit of a different video from my usual Xeno content. It's no secret that I'm a big fan of Nintendo, with my interest in the company being one of the main reasons I would even try out a random JRPG called Xenoblade Chronicles. I've been a big fan of Nintendo since playing Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Wii and wanting to learn more about the assortment of characters that appear in that game. However, this video is not going to be on my interest in Nintendo games, but instead on their hardware. Nintendo has been the mind behind some of the wackiest and coolest pieces of tech I've ever owned, from the fun design of the GameCube to the multiple ways to play the Switch, to even the coolness of the Wii U's gamepad as a second screen, in the few cases they actually used it properly. It's this interest in tech that's led me to seek every bit of info I could find during the lead up to the Switch's launch back when it was called the Nintendo NX, even though I have no idea what a Tegra X1 chip even does. It's also an interest that has driven me to pick up almost every main Nintendo console just so I can hold these pieces of tech history in my own two hands. However, now owning these pieces of hardware, I am beginning to notice a trend in the design of these consoles. It's a trend that could possibly shed light on what's next for the Big N when it comes to their console lineup. And that trend is the rule of two. Yes, just like the Sith, every Nintendo console comes with a group of two, no more and no less. Since entering the home console market in 1983, discounting the colour TV game, Nintendo has always released two consoles that are relatively similar to one another before making a drastic shake-up and releasing another two consoles. This is true for both the home consoles and handheld consoles in every era, and I'll now go into detail on each of them. The classic 2D era, also known as the Nintendo Entertainment System era or the NES era, is periods when Nintendo released two 2D cartridge-based consoles, the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Not only do these consoles share a name with each other, but they also have a lot in common. Both feature wingless controllers with a D-pad on one side and face buttons on the other, and two controller ports to plug them into the system. Both consoles use a grey colour scheme, and their game library both consist heavily of 2D platformers and other side-scrolling adventures. Despite the SNES being very similar in so many ways to the NES, Nintendo decided to spice things up with a brand new era of consoles. The classic 3D era. I sometimes like to call this the 4-controller port era, and this is arguably the odd one out of the different eras, due to the two consoles being quite different in several ways, with one being a cartridge-based console and the other being CD-based. But I still think that the Nintendo 64 and GameCube have a lot in common. For starters, both are early 3D consoles, lacking the HD displays, home screens and online functionalities of the later consoles. They also, as said earlier, feature 4 controller ports, making both consoles have a strong focus on multiplayer. The two also feature very similar games, with both having a lot of 3D platformers and adventure games. They're also quite colourful, with both console and now winged controllers coming in a wide variety of colours. And I guess we could also mention how those controllers have a lot in common, such as the C buttons and C stick, and the green and red colour schemes used for the A and B buttons. The Wii Era. Also known as the gimmicky era, this period saw Nintendo abandon state-of-the-art graphics for a new way to play gimmicks such as the Wii and its Wii Remote and the Wii U and its gamepad. While some might argue the Wii and GameCube should be lumped together, with the Wii basically being a buffed up GameCube, I would argue the two are very different philosophies of design, with one being a hardcore power machine and the other being a casual fun machine for everyone. This era saw the introduction of the Wii menu, as well as the introduction of a ton of gimmick-based games, as seen with the Wii series. And those are the three home console eras. But the trend doesn't stop there. The handhelds also have eras. The Game Boy era. While some might argue the Game Boy has 3 entries, Nintendo has always stated that they see the Game Boy Color as an upgraded Game Boy and not a successor console. Thus, this era consists purely of the Game Boy and its successor, the Game Boy Advance. This was an era of classic handheld gaming where the consoles had only one screen, 2 face buttons, and all the games started with that classic Game Boy jingle. DS era. Much like how Nintendo overhauled the design of the SNES and GameCube, they yet again overhauled the design of the Game Boy to now give us the DS. Now with 2 screens and 3D graphics, the DS era saw touchscreens pave the way for a whole bunch of new ways to play. This era also saw the handheld consoles get home screens like their big console siblings, as well as tune down the cartridges from the thick Game Boy ones to the newer sleek designs. However, much like with every other era, once the 3DS was done, we again moved into a new era. The hybrid era. Now we're on to the present day. The Switch, much like the Nintendo 64, Wii and DS, has shaken up the Nintendo formula again. No longer existing purely as a console or handheld, the Switch is in a league of its own to define this new era of Nintendo's console design. So what's to expect from the new console? So if the trend holds, we can expect the next Nintendo system to be relatively similar to the previous system. This likely means Nintendo will keep the handheld design. We can also expect a massive boost in the power department, with every second console in the era being much more powerful than the first console in the era. We'll likely see similarities between the Switch and this new console, such as similar game cartridges, with most of the eras featuring consoles with near identical storage formats. We will likely see a similar UI, with both the DS and Wii eras featuring similar UIs between the two consoles. And finally, we will likely see the word Switch used in the new console's name. While it's likely you could have deduced these facts quite easily from the fact that the Switch is selling like crazy, and if it ain't broke, why would Nintendo bother to change anything? But I found it interesting to see this trend in Nintendo's home consoles and handhelds, and I feel like it's worth talking about. To be honest, it's much better making this video now that the Switch is out, rather than 5 years ago during the Wii U period, knowing that Nintendo's next console was going to be a massive shake-up, as predicting how Nintendo shakes things up is near impossible. So to sum up, Nintendo's next console will be called the Switch something, and will be a relatively similar console with boosted power. However, the console coming after this is anyone's guess, and it will be drastically different to anything we have seen before. But that's a long way off, and you never know, I might finally have another video out by then. Until next time, bye.